I never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am at 2 a.m., unable to sleep, trying to make sense of what just happened. My girlfriend Sarah and I have been together for 3 years, living together for the past year, and I genuinely thought we were solid. We talked about marriage, kids, the whole future, and I trusted her completely. 2 weeks ago, Sarah came home from work and casually mentioned over dinner that she was planning a girls' trip to Miami for the upcoming weekend. "Hey babe, so Emily, Jessica, and a few of the girls are planning this girls' trip to Miami this weekend. Just need to get away and have some fun in the sun," she said while cutting into her chicken. I looked up and smiled because honestly, I thought it was great. "That sounds awesome. You definitely deserve a break," I told her, and I meant it. She'd been working long hours and seemed stressed, so a weekend with her girlfriend seemed perfect. "You're not invited though. It's strictly a girls' thing. No boys allowed," she added with a laugh. I laughed too and said, "Have a great time, seriously." The thought of being suspicious never even crossed my mind. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Over the next week, I watched her get excited about the trip, helped her pick out dresses for the clubs, drove her to the airport Friday morning. "Text me when you land. Be safe. Have the best time," I told her as she grabbed her suitcase. "I will. Love you so much," she said, kissing me goodbye. Friday and Saturday, I just did my usual bachelor weekend stuff, played video games, went to the gym, nothing special. Sarah texted me photos of the beach, her and her girlfriends with cocktails, typical vacation stuff, and everything seemed completely normal. Then Saturday afternoon around 3 p.m., my phone rang, and it was Sarah's mom, Linda, calling. Linda and I have always gotten along great. She's basically adopted me as a son at this point. "Hey Linda, what's up?" I answered cheerfully. "Hi honey. How are you doing?" she asked, and I could tell something was off in her voice. "I'm good, just hanging out at home," I replied. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "Wait, you're at home. Why aren't you in Miami with Sarah and everyone?" I literally froze. "What do you mean?" "Sarah's on a girls' trip with Emily and Jessica," I said, feeling my heart start to race. There was a pause, and then Linda said in this bewildered voice, "A girls' trip? Honey, it's a couple's vacation. Sarah told me you couldn't make it because of work." My hand was shaking holding the phone. "Linda, I'm confused. She specifically told me it was a girls' trip, that no guys were invited," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "No, that's not right at all," Linda said, now sounding concerned. "Emily and her boyfriend Jake are there, Jessica and her husband Tom, and I thought Sarah said her friend Marcus was coming too." When she said the name Marcus, everything inside me went cold. Marcus is Sarah's ex-boyfriend from college. They dated for a year before she and I got together, and she always insisted they were just friends now. I'd met him a few times at parties, never loved the guy, always felt like he looked at Sarah in a way that wasn't quite friendly enough, but I'd push those thoughts away because I trusted her. "Marcus, her ex-Marcus?" I asked, and even I could hear the edge in my voice now. "Well, yes, I mean they're friends, so I didn't think it was strange, but wait, she told you it was girls only?" Linda asked, and now she sounded horrified. "Yes, Linda. She specifically said girls' trip, no boys allowed," I said, pacing around my living room now. "Oh my God, I had no idea. I'm so sorry," Linda said, and I could hear the genuine shock in her voice. After we hung up, I just stood there in my living room, trying to understand what the hell was happening. My girlfriend lied directly to my face. She's on a couple's vacation with her ex-boyfriend, and I'd been completely clueless. Then I remembered something. Sarah had left her iPad at home, and that iPad was synced to her iMessage. I'd never snooped before, never felt the need to, but right now, I needed to know the truth. I grabbed the iPad from our bedroom, unlocked it, and opened iMessages. I immediately saw a group chat called Miami Babes, with about 6 people in it. My hands were trembling as I clicked on it, and started reading from the beginning. The messages went back about a month, and right away, I could see this was never a girls' trip. "Can't wait for this couple's retreat. It's going to be so romantic." Emily had written, "Do we have the villa rental confirmed? I want to make sure there are enough rooms for all the couples." Jessica had added, and then I saw Sarah's messages. "Yes, villa is booked, 3 bedrooms, so we'll have to share, but it'll be cozy." I kept scrolling, feeling sicker with every message. "Is Marcus really coming? I thought you guys broke up years ago." Emily had written. Sarah's response, "Yeah, we're just friends now. It's totally chill. And honestly, I didn't tell Opie about him coming because he gets weird about Marcus sometimes. Easier this way." My stomach turned reading that. She knew I'd be uncomfortable, so she just decided to lie instead. There were messages about booking couples massages, about going to clubs together, about sharing hotel rooms. Marcus and I can share the smaller room. We're both singles, so it's whatever. Sarah had written, and I nearly threw the iPad across the room. Single? She referred to herself as single? I took screenshots of everything, every damning message, every lie, every reference to this being a couple's trip. There were photos in the chat too, recent ones from the airport, Sarah and Marcus standing close together, his arm around her waist. More photos from the beach earlier today, all of them as couples, Marcus and Sarah lying on beach chairs next to each other, her hand on his chest in one photo. I spent the next hour reading through everything, checking her direct messages with Marcus too. They'd been texting regularly for weeks, nothing explicitly inappropriate, but definitely more friendly than I'd been aware of. "Can't wait to see you in Miami," he'd written. "Me too. It's been too long," she'd replied with a kiss emoji. I sat there on our bed, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal, trying to decide what to do next. Part of me wanted to call her right then and scream at her, but the calmer part told me to wait, to let her come home and confront her with all the evidence at once. I called Linda back and sent her the screenshots. "Oh my God," she kept saying as her phone pinged with each one. "I had no idea she'd lied to you like this. I'm so sorry." Linda said she wanted to call Sarah immediately, but I asked her to wait. I want to confront her face to face with all of this. I need to see her reaction when I show her that I know everything. Linda reluctantly agreed. After we hung up, I just sat there in the darkness, the iPad glowing next to me with all the evidence. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Missing you so much, baby. Wish you were here." The sheer audacity of that message while she was probably lying on a beach next to her ex-boyfriend made something inside me harden. I didn't respond, just stared at those lying words, and knew that everything between us was over. Sunday morning I woke up after barely sleeping, my mind still racing through everything I'd discovered. I grabbed my phone and saw 3 more texts from Sarah, all sent late last night. Messages about the incredible dinner, about hitting the clubs with everyone, a drunk, "Love you so much, babe," at 1 a.m. Each message felt like a knife twisting in my gut because I knew exactly who everyone was, and I could picture her dancing with Marcus while sending me these lies. I didn't respond to any of them, just left her on read, and she'd noticed because another message came around 2 a.m. asking if I was okay and why I wasn't responding. The irony of her being worried about my silence while she was literally on vacation with her ex-boyfriend was almost funny in the darkest way possible. I spent most of Sunday going through more of the iPad messages, finding even more damning evidence I'd missed the first time. There was a conversation from 3 weeks ago where Sarah told Emily she knew she should probably tell me Marcus was coming, but I'd just make it into this big thing, and she didn't want the drama. Emily had asked if that wasn't kind of messed up, what if I found out? And Sarah had written back that I wouldn't find out, and what I didn't know wouldn't hurt me, that they were all adults here. Reading that made me realize this wasn't just a spontaneous lie or a last-minute decision. This was calculated and premeditated. She'd actively chosen deception over honesty weeks ago, and she'd justified it to herself and her friends like it was no big deal. There were more photos deeper in the chat too, planning screenshots from weeks ago. Images of the villa rental confirmation showing 3 bedrooms with king beds, detailed messages about room assignments where Sarah had volunteered to share with Marcus since they were the only singles. That word kept appearing, singles, like our 3-year relationship and shared apartment meant absolutely nothing, like I'd been erased from her life with a single word choice. Around noon on Sunday, my best friend Mike called to see if I wanted to grab lunch, and I just broke down and told him everything. He kept repeating variations of, "What the fuck?" as I explained the whole situation, the girl's trip lie, the couple's vacation reality, her ex-boyfriend being there, her mother's phone call that had exposed everything. Mike was the kind of friend who'd drive to Miami right then to confront them, but I told him I had a plan, that I was going to wait for her to come home and confront her face to face with all the evidence. He said he'd be blowing up her phone if he were me, but I explained that I wanted to see her face when I showed her everything I knew, wanted to watch her try to explain away the mountain of proof I collected. We talked for over an hour, and Mike helped me think through the practical logistics of what would happen next. The apartment situation, the lease in both our names, who would move out, how to separate our lives that had become so intertwined over 3 years. After talking to Mike, I felt slightly better, more clear-headed about what needed to happen. I started thinking practically about the inevitable breakup, because that's what this was leading to. There was no coming back from this level of betrayal and premeditated deception. I looked around our apartment, really looked at it, seeing all the shared things we'd accumulated over 3 years together. The photos on the walls from our trips and celebrations, her stuff mixed with my stuff, the couch we'd picked out together, the kitchen gadgets we'd received as housewarming gifts. I felt this wave of sadness wash over me that was different from the anger I'd felt yesterday. This morning I'd woken up furious, but now I just felt tired and sad, mourning the relationship I thought I had, mourning the future I thought we were building together. My phone buzzed again with another text from Sarah, something cheerful about heading to the beach for their last day, mentioning her flight leaving tonight, saying she couldn't wait to see me tomorrow. The casual cheerfulness of it, the complete lack of awareness that her entire world was about to explode when she walked through our apartment door, was almost surreal to witness. I decided to start preparing for the confrontation by organizing all my evidence like I was building a legal case. I created a folder on my phone with all the screenshots, organized chronologically so I could walk her through the entire timeline of lies. I had screenshots of the group chat going back a full month showing this was always planned as a couple's trip, screenshots of her direct messages with Marcus where they discussed the trip, photos of them together at the airport and on the beach, that devastating message where she'd called herself single and volunteered to share a room with him. I also wrote down a detailed timeline of her lies. Every single time she'd mentioned the girls' trip to me over the past 2 weeks, every detail she'd fabricated about who was going and what they'd be doing. I knew she'd try to gaslight me, try to make me doubt what I'd seen or minimize what had happened, because I'd read enough Reddit relationship posts to know exactly how these confrontations typically went. The cheater always tries to minimize, deflect, blame the other person for snooping or being controlling, anything to avoid taking full responsibility for their actions. Sunday evening, I got another call from Linda, checking in on me and asking how I was holding up. I told her I was okay, just trying to process everything and prepare for the confrontation tomorrow. She said she still couldn't believe her daughter had done this, that she'd raised her better than this, and she sounded genuinely heartbroken about the whole situation. I asked if she'd talked to Sarah yet, and Linda said no. She wanted to respect my wishes and let me handle it first, but she was deeply disappointed in her daughter's choices. We talked about the logistics, and Linda offered to come over when Sarah got home to help mediate the conversation, but I told her I needed to do this one-on-one first, at least initially. She told me she was on my side in this, that what Sarah had done was completely unacceptable, which honestly meant a lot to me because I'd been worried her mom might defend her despite everything. Before we hung up, Linda said something that almost made me tear up. She told me I was a good man and I deserved so much better than this, and whatever happened, I was still family to her. That hit me hard because I realized I wasn't just losing Sarah. I was losing her family who I'd grown close to over the years, her parents who'd welcomed me into their lives, the future family gatherings and holidays we'd all shared. The rest of Sunday evening dragged on forever, every minute feeling like an hour as I waited for tomorrow's confrontation. Sarah kept sending updates about their last night in Miami, photos of the sunset on the beach, a video of everyone at a fancy restaurant. And in the background of one video, I could clearly see Marcus sitting next to her, his hand casually resting on the back of her chair in an intimate, familiar way. She'd deliberately angled the camera to try to keep him out of frame, but he was still visible if you looked carefully and knew what to look for. The calculated nature of it, the way she was so carefully curating what she showed me versus the reality of what was actually happening, just reinforced that this wasn't a mistake or misunderstanding or something that had gotten out of hand. This was intentional, systematic deception, planned and executed over weeks. Around 11 p.m. she texted that they were boarding soon, would be home around 2 a.m., told me not to wait up, and she'd just climb into bed quietly. I responded for the first time all day with just 3 words that I'll be awake. Nothing else, no explanation or warmth. I saw the 3 dots appear and disappear several times like she was typing and deleting different responses, probably sensing something was off, but not knowing what. Finally, she just sent back an okay, and see you soon with a heart emoji, and I stared at that heart wondering how she could send me that symbol while literally sitting next to the man she'd been lying to me about for weeks. I couldn't sleep that night. Just lay in our bed staring at the ceiling, playing through different versions of how the confrontation would go in my mind. Would she cry immediately when I revealed what I knew? Would she try to deny everything even when faced with undeniable evidence? Would she get angry and defensive, turn it around on me for going through her iPad, accuse me of violating her privacy or being controlling? I thought about all the moments over the past month where she'd been lying directly to my face. All the time she'd come home from supposed planning drinks with the girls, and kissed me hello, knowing the whole time she was planning this trip with her ex-boyfriend. I thought about how she'd let me help her pack her suitcase, let me drive her to the airport, let me be this supportive, trusting boyfriend while she was actively betraying me. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, and by the time I heard her key turning in the door at 2:15 a.m., I was sitting on the couch in the dark living room, wide awake and ready for this confrontation to finally happen. I heard her trying to be quiet as she came in, the sound of her suitcase wheels on our floor, the door closing softly behind her. She turned on the hallway light and visibly jumped when she saw me sitting there in the darkness like some kind of ghost. She gave this nervous laugh and asked why I was sitting in the dark, said I'd scared her. She looked tan and relaxed. Her hair still had that beachy wave to it, and she was wearing a Miami tank top I'd never seen before, probably bought with him on this trip. I told her we needed to talk, and my voice came out much colder than I'd intended, though maybe that was exactly how it should sound. Her smile faltered immediately, and she asked if everything was all right, mentioned that I'd been weird with my texts. I stood up and told her no, everything was definitely not all right, told her to sit down because we needed to have a serious conversation about her trip. She looked confused, but I could see it now, that flash of fear in her eyes, some part of her knowing that something had gone wrong with her elaborate deception. She tried to maintain the act, said her trip was great, that she'd had such a good time, started pulling out her phone saying she wanted to show me all the photos. I cut her off and told her I'd already seen the photos. All of them. Every single one. Sarah's face went completely white when I said I'd seen all the photos. Her voice was shaking now as she asked what I meant, the confident facade cracking in real time. I pulled out my phone with all the screenshots ready and told her I'd seen everything. The group chat, the messages with Marcus, the photos of them together, all of it. She opened her mouth, closed it, then managed to say she could explain. I asked her to go ahead then, to explain why she'd told me this was a girl's trip when it was actually a couple's vacation with her ex-boyfriend, and despite my attempt to stay calm, my voice was rising. She sat down heavily on the couch, and I could literally see her mind racing behind her eyes, trying to figure out how much I knew, calculating what she could still deny and what she'd have to admit. She went with the most obvious lie first, claiming Marcus was just there because Emily invited him, that she didn't even know he was coming until the last minute. The lie was so blatant, so easily disprovable that I almost laughed at the audacity. I swiped to a screenshot from 3 weeks ago and asked her to explain why she'd written about sharing the smaller room with Marcus since they were both single. Her eyes widened as she saw her own words on my phone screen, and then came the deflection I'd been expecting. She accused me of going through her messages, said it was a violation of her privacy, trying to make me the bad guy in this situation. I felt the anger surge as I pointed out that she'd lied to me for weeks, gone on vacation with her ex-boyfriend after telling me it was a girl's trip, and she was worried about privacy. She stood up now, going on the offensive, insisting nothing had happened with Marcus, that they were just friends, that I was being paranoid. I was almost shouting as I listed everything she'd done, calling herself single, lying to my face every single day for weeks. We argued in circles for another 20 minutes, her trying to minimize and justify every lie while I showed her screenshot after screenshot. She cried. She apologized. She said she knew it was wrong, but she hadn't wanted to deal with me being insecure about Marcus. The victim blaming in that statement was breathtaking. I asked her why she hadn't just had an honest conversation instead of lying and sneaking around. She admitted she'd lied, but still insisted nothing physical had happened, that they were really just friends. I told her that even if I believed that, which I absolutely didn't, she'd still destroyed every bit of trust between us. She'd planned this elaborate deception, gotten her friends in on it, lied to her own mother about what was happening. She was full-on sobbing now, reaching for me, begging me to forgive her, saying she'd do anything, that she loved me. I stepped back away from her touch and told her quietly that I didn't think she did love me, because people who love each other don't do things like this. Then my phone rang, and I saw it was Linda calling at almost 3 a.m. I told Sarah I had to take this and walked into the bedroom. Linda apologized for calling so late, but said she'd just gotten off the phone with Emily's mother, and there was something I needed to know. My stomach dropped as I asked what it was. Linda's voice was shaking as she told me that Emily's mom had just revealed that Sarah and Marcus were sharing a room, that they'd requested a 2-bedroom villa specifically. The 3rd bedroom was for Emily and Jake. My blood went cold. Linda confirmed that Emily's mom had made the booking and shown her the confirmation. It was always a 2-bedroom setup from the beginning. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Sarah had just looked me in the eye minutes ago and sworn they had separate rooms. I walked back into the living room where Sarah was still sitting on the couch wiping her eyes. I told her coldly that her mom had just called, that Linda had talked to Emily's mom, who made the villa booking. I watched the color drain from Sarah's face again as she realized another lie had been exposed. I asked if she wanted to revise her story about having separate rooms. She just stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, unable to form words. She stammered something about how it wasn't what I thought. They just shared to save money. Nothing happened. I lost it then and shouted at her to stop lying. To just stop fucking lying for once. Even now, caught completely red-handed with undeniable proof, she was still trying to lie to me. She started crying harder and finally admitted yes, they shared a room, but swore on everything they didn't sleep together. That's when I told her to get out. She looked up at me in shock, asking what I meant, and I repeated it. I told her to get out of the apartment right now, to go stay with her mom, go stay with Marcus for all I cared, but she needed to leave immediately. She started begging, saying she had nowhere to go, that it was the middle of the night, that we could talk about this in the morning when we were both calmer. I told her she should have thought about that before she decided to blow up our entire relationship. She could come back tomorrow when I was at work to get her stuff, but right now, I needed her gone. She looked at me for a long moment, maybe hoping I'd back down, but I just stared back, completely done with her and her lies. Finally, she grabbed her purse and her suitcase, still wearing her Miami clothes, and walked to the door. She tried one more time, saying this wasn't over and we needed to talk about this properly. I told her yeah, it was over, we were done. She stood there for another moment, then opened the door and left. I stood there in the silence for a long time after she left, processing everything that had just happened. Then I did something I didn't expect, something I hadn't planned. I found Marcus's number in Sarah's iPad messages and called him at 3:30 a.m. He answered after a few rings, sounding groggy and confused. I identified myself as Sarah's boyfriend, and there was a long pause before he said hey, suddenly sounding very awake and very nervous. I told him I wasn't calling to threaten him. I just had one question and I wanted him to be honest with me. After a cautious okay from him, I asked directly if he'd slept with Sarah this weekend. Another long pause. Then he tried to deflect, saying he didn't want to get in the middle of relationship stuff. I cut him off and told him the relationship was already over. I just needed to know the truth. He sighed deeply, and then he told me, yes, they'd hooked up, but Sarah had told him we were basically broken up, that she was going to end things when she got back. I actually laughed at that, a bitter, hollow sound that surprised even me. I told him we lived together, we'd been talking about marriage just last month, but sure, basically broken up. He apologized, said he didn't know, that she'd made it sound like we were done. He actually sounded genuine, and I found myself thanking him for being honest, noting that it was more than Sarah had been. I hung up and sat back down on the couch, just staring at the wall. It was worse than I'd thought. She hadn't just lied about the trip, she'd actually cheated, and then she'd looked me in the eye repeatedly and denied it, swearing on everything that nothing had happened. My phone started buzzing with texts from Sarah, paragraph after paragraph of apologies and explanations, but I didn't read any of them. Just turned my phone face down on the coffee table. The next morning I called in sick to work and spent the day boxing up all of Sarah's stuff that she'd left behind. Linda came over around noon with coffee and pastries, gave me a long hug, and helped me pack everything up. She kept saying how ashamed she was of her daughter while folding Sarah's clothes into boxes. I told her this wasn't her fault, that she couldn't control Sarah's choices. We worked in silence for a while, the apartment filling with cardboard boxes, and then Linda said something that surprised me. She told me she'd never mentioned this before, but Sarah had done something similar to Marcus back in college, that there was another guy involved in their breakup. I looked at her, shocked, because I'd always been told that Marcus had broken up with Sarah. Linda explained that no, that was just the story Sarah had told everyone, but her and her husband had known the truth. Sarah had a pattern of this behavior, and Linda had been hoping she'd grown out of it, but clearly she hadn't. That information was somehow both validating and devastating at the same time. By evening, all of Sarah's stuff was packed and stacked by the door, ready for her to pick up. She'd texted saying she'd come get it tomorrow with her dad. I ordered pizza, cracked open a beer, and finally opened Reddit on my laptop. I'd been lurking on relationship advice subreddits for months, reading other people's drama and never thinking I'd have my own story to share. I created a throwaway account and started typing out everything that had happened over the past 48 hours. I posted it around 9 p.m., not really expecting much response, just needing to get it all out of my system. Within an hour, the post had hundreds of upvotes and comments. People were supportive, angry on my behalf, sharing their own similar stories of betrayal and lies. One comment stood out, though, suggesting I should send the screenshots to everyone who went on the trip, pointing out that they'd all lied to me and enabled Sarah's deception. I hadn't thought about that, but the commenter was right. Emily, Jessica, all of them had known and said nothing to me. So I did something petty, something I'm not entirely proud of, but also don't regret at all. I created a group text with everyone who'd been on the trip, including Marcus, and sent a simple message thanking them for being such great friends and helping Sarah lie to me about the couple's trip. I attached a screenshot of her telling me it was a girls' trip, followed by multiple screenshots of the group chat proving everyone knew it was couples from the beginning. Then I muted the chat and watched my phone explode with notifications, dozens of messages flooding in as everyone scrambled to respond and justify their silence. 3 days later, Sarah came to get the last of her stuff. We barely spoke, just loaded boxes into her dad's truck in heavy silence while he gave me these apologetic looks. Before they left, Sarah turned to me and said she really did love me, that she'd just made a huge mistake. I looked at her, this person I'd thought I'd spend my life with, and felt absolutely nothing. I told her no, a mistake is forgetting to text back or double booking plans. But what she did was a choice, actually multiple choices, hundreds of small choices to lie to me every single day. She didn't say anything to that, just got in the truck and left. 2 weeks later, I was doing okay, actually better than okay. I'd been going to the gym more consistently, hanging out with Mike and my other friends, even went on a date that Mike's girlfriend set up. Nothing serious, just coffee and conversation. But it felt good to know I could move forward and meet new people. Then I got a call from Linda with some interesting news. She told me Sarah and Marcus had broken up already. I asked, surprised how that happened so fast, and Linda explained that apparently once they were actually dating openly and not sneaking around, the excitement wore off completely. Plus, Emily had told everyone in their friend group what had really happened, and most of them had taken my side in the situation. Linda mentioned that Sarah had been asking about me, and I told her to tell Sarah I said good luck. Linda laughed and said I was handling this remarkably well, and I told her honestly that I'd dodged a bullet. And every day, I was more grateful I'd found out the truth before marriage or kids made things infinitely more complicated. That night, I updated my Reddit post with all the aftermath details, the confrontation, the confession from Marcus, the petty group text revenge, everything. The post went viral, over 10,000 upvotes, hundreds of comments, people asking for updates and thanking me for sharing. Someone even made a TikTok reading the entire story that got millions of views apparently. Sarah somehow found the post, recognized herself despite the changed names, and texted me furious asking how dare I air our private business online. I replied with just 4 words, asking if she meant my business, and then blocked her number permanently. 6 months later, I'm actually happy, dating someone new who's honest and communicative, everything Sarah wasn't. I still see Linda occasionally for coffee, and she always apologizes for her daughter, but I tell her the same thing every time. Finding out the truth was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I mean it. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best new beginnings, and I'm living proof of that. Trust your gut, folks, and never ignore those red flags, no matter how much you want to. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments, drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories.